welcome to Solve This Murder. I am your newly appointed New South Wales coroner, Bill.
And I am your waste disposal manager, Dani. We're on to the autopsy of Murder on the Links.
What does a waste disposal manager do in the
You
Just
don't
keep
wanna
throwing
know.
stuff out? You check the heart yet? All right, thanks. In the bin. Welcome. This is the autopsy for Murder on the
Would you
Links.
have rather I said I was the incinerator?
That's fair. If you ever just jumped in because you saw it said like it's the newest episode and you've just found out about the show, this is a breakdown of the mystery we just did. So go back and listen to the last mystery we did because this is all spoilers. That being said, welcome to the show. Dani, that was fun.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
It's wild. It did get a bit weird by the end.
I told you repeatedly that I thought that you would solve some parts, but not other parts. The 3 parts that I have in mind being the fake murder,
Which I didn't get until right at the end.
the Bella segment of the false confessions, and
Sure.
then the real solution.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I'm very glad I don't have to make an apology episode where I apologize for doubting Mrs. Renault's story. I'm glad it was as fake as it was. I think it was nice to go back and to re-examine in my head, like, how she reacted to finding the body. Because at first it was, that story is fake. And then it was, oh, she reacted fairly, like, freaked out about the body, so the story must be real.
This is exactly the thing that Poirot goes through in the story.
As in, like, she didn't kill her husband or something. Like, she's clearly, like, it sounded like she was covering for killing her husband. And then it seemed like, oh, no, she was not, because she's really distraught about seeing her husband. But then it only dawned on me, like, part, like, 7 in a re-examination. Like, no, she wasn't sad to see her husband. She was shocked to see her. She was like, what the hell is going on here? That's Paul. What? Oh, my God. That is my husband. What? It wasn't like a moment of oh yeah, seeing him like this. No, it was like a wait, what? And that was like the key to she didn't think her husband was dead. She thought the vagabond was dead. Obviously, I wasn't going to get that until I found the second body. Like there were certain elements about the fake murder that didn't click in until I realized there was another body to have the murder have been faked. Right? You see someone's body, you're not like, well, that's a fake murder. But yeah, that was fun. And it was fun to piece that together. And it was one of those clarifying moments of like, oh, like, it was really lovely. You prompted me to go back and start like ticking stuff off and be like, yes, that relates to this part. That relates to this part. So what's left that isn't part of the original plan?
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. It's like solve a mini mystery and then pull that mystery out and see what clues are left for the real mystery. You know, and I really like it. It's kind of like when there's a theft or something. And you go, wait a minute, okay, so all this stuff I was finding about like people being free or people breaking in or this, that, how much of this relates to the theft that happened during this mystery and how much relates to the murder?
Absolutely.
It's a
big
classic
thing.
Agatha Christie thing.
A big thing in Agatha Christie's is having multiple crimes or plans in some way going on at the same time and needing to filter them piece by piece and categorize them appropriately.
It's a really fun little thing to do. I've got, how many notes, you said you had how many pages of notes for this? Like 5 pages?
5 pages.
I think I've got more notes than you do.
I mean, quite possibly.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a little bit. So pretty much the same, actually. That's kind of fun. Man, that was fun. So what do we need to go, what do we want to go over? One of the things that you said to me off air was that you thought I would get the faking his death stuff earlier than I did.
A little bit, because when I read through the story, that part I got pretty much right away.
Even before you found the second body?
As soon as she saw the body of her husband and fainted, I went, she didn't know that was going to happen.
Interesting. Now, so were you when you were reading it, were you waiting for there to be another body that popped up, or like do you think it was meant to be a false, like there wasn't meant to be a body?
I wasn't waiting for a second body in particular. But no, I really wasn't. I don't remember my thoughts when the second body actually showed up, now that we mention it.
Because if she didn't expect there to be anybody, surely she would be freaking out when she was asked to identify the body. So clearly she expected there to be a body, because she wasn't like, wait, identify the body? What the hell? Oh my God, what are you talking about? Like that was part of her plan originally.
Yeah, absolutely. I truly don't remember where
all right.
I was at that point. The big thing, now I read this years and years ago. I'm not sure exactly when. It could have been when I was 14 or something. And I don't remember having too many thoughts about this one. I do recall finding the actual whodunit aspect very hard to follow because apparently I remembered there being twists. But the big one that I remembered was the twin thing.
Ah, yes.
I
Which
remember
was not
that-
as big an issue, the twins.
No.
It was always the same
And yet it was the
girl.
only thing I remembered from this book and why I was so reluctant to read it, because I went, ugh, yeah, it breaks that rule of twins being a thing. And so I was pretty sure in my memory, I was going, yep, there are definitely twins. One of them I know Hastings ends up married to, so she's the good one. But throughout the story, they like swap places and he meets one of them and thinks it's the same one again. And then it turns out the other one was the murderer. And no, apparently 15 to 20 years really just warps your memory of that, because that really wasn't true.
And I think what's nice about it, like in terms of like breaking the rules of using twins or whatever, is I don't even know if they were twins. Like once Hastings saw the other one, he was like, "Oh, you're a different person." There was no one who knew who they were was ever confused over which one it was.
So in the book, it happens. I changed a lot of little things.
Maybe
through
you
the
just
book.
made it better then.
I think it happens. When Jack gets arrested, Poirot and Hastings search through his room. Poirot finds a letter from Bella with her picture. And Hastings goes, "Oh my God, that's her."
the girl on
They
the
go
train.
and they find it, and like Hastings professes his love for her, and tells her to run away, even though he knows that she did the murder. And she goes, "Yeah, okay," and she
Come
does
on,
that.
Hastings.
But then after, when they realize that it was the sister all along, Poirot just rips into him and says, "You really thought they looked the same?"
Yeah, you confess your eternal
What?
love to a woman you couldn't even tell
Yeah.
her apart from her sister in a photo. How
So
funny.
no, they are seemingly twins, but
Yeah, but not
that
twins.
level of
They're-
identical twins, but you can always tell the difference if
Well,
you've
they're
known.
fraternal twins.
Yeah, maybe, but they look very similar.
But yeah, so then going back through everything, like I think we kind of covered all of the structure of it. Like I did a pretty clear, like boom, 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 step by step breakdown of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it did need some event leading because there were just lots of things going on. Lots of things that if I had actively decided to, I could have cut out. We didn't need Gerard there.
No,
Like,
but
we
he
could
was
have
fun.
said
He was a
one
great
character
little
for
character.
everything.
He was
Yeah.
lovely to have around.
There were lots of things. Leonie, the maid, has a sister.
Oh. Who cares?
Yeah, one of them was the one who found Mrs. Renault tied up, and the other one was the one who did all the eavesdropping downstairs. But, that didn't seem to
So
matter.
there were like two maids, and that you just kind of flumped into one.
Yeah,
That's fair.
they were sister maids
Yeah,
as
who
well.
needs that?
It really
Although
didn't
unless
matter.
that was meant to make me start thinking about sisters.
Yeah,
But
I
I was
can't
already
imagine.
I was
So
already introduced
they,
to the person
they
in the
didn't
context of their
reappear.
sister.
Yeah, we had things like a lot of evidence. There were hairs left around on things.
Oh.
Like, there was a hair wrapped around the handle of the knife and things. And I just went, oh, yeah, it's a dark hair, slightly long. So it could be from a woman or a slightly long-haired man, which
Oh,
Jack
yeah.
apparently is.
Oh,
and I just
okay.
going, this is just ruling out
is just
everybody
fluff.
except Marta. And also, one of them, they ended up saying, oh, yes, it's Mrs. Renaud's hair. It just so happened, like, she's mostly grey, but not that one. That just happened to be one of the dark hairs on her head.
Oh,
so I just
yeah.
went, this is not helping
good-
anything.
I think that's a very good cut,
Yeah.
especially for me trying to figure it out. That feels like that's just padding the mystery. Yeah. Oh, look, I had a lot of fun. I still maintain there is an insanity to the idea of like, hey, we should fake your death, and him being like, well, let me tell you about a murder I did 20 years
Yeah.
ago. Let's just copy that.
It does-
Like, that's the worst way to fake your death.
It's
to
one of
copy a
those-
murder that already exists.
It's one of those things. Poirot does have a little bit of monologuing about how people aren't creative. They like their patterns, and they like to stick with things that they know.
Sure, Poirot. Sure.
One of the difficulties that I really had
Hmm.
with running this one is that you are not a stupid person. And
But
oh
Hastings
boy,
is.
in this one, this is an early book, Hastings has some dreadful moments. And I had to force you into one of them.
There was one earlier where it was like,
Oh.
she clearly wants to see the body, and I clearly don't want to let a random person ruin my crime scene, but I need to for the story to happen. Like,
Yep.
that is required information for this.
And
for
you
this
aren't allowed to
story.
then, after she's gone, check the crime scene to make sure that
Because I
everything's
need to have
the
enough
same.
time to make it ambiguous to still
Oh.
be a mystery. Yeah, so there were moments where it's like the impetus of the story is is a failure on the part of the detectives, which I didn't make. So I needed to be told, hey, make this mistake.
Yeah.
Were there other ones where you could have done that more? Or were there ones where I just happened to fail in the exact same way that Hastings did?
Oh, I don't think you ever failed in the exact same way that Hastings did. I just tried in certain ways to let you actually get them. Like a lot of the stuff with Bella, like making an association between her and Jack. Yeah, he doesn't do that until after Jack's arrested.
Oh, are you kidding me? He had a note
It's
from
terrible.
Bella.
The idea that the two men had swapped coats at some stage. No,
come
that
on.
is Poirot just says, oh, funny, he wore his coat rather long. And, yep,
No,
again,
you suck, Hastings. Learn to
3/4
solve
of a
mystery.
book before that happens. It's embarrassing, really.
The real question is, where's Hiram Trapp?
He was a good, honourable man who wasn't having an affair.
Fair enough.
So he went on with his life. Yeah, one of the ones, I told you about this off air, but I gotta tell everybody else. After reading about the Baraldi case, Hastings says to Poirot, "Oh, thank you. You've made it so clear. I understand everything now." And Poirot says, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, obviously, Mrs. De Broy is the woman from this story.
True.
And she's in love with the vagrant."
Why? Why would this be true?
The idea that mysterious rich man who nobody knows anything about his past could have been someone from this 20-year-old story just didn't occur to him.
Come on, they wanted to steal the Jack Ruby. Yeah, okay, that's hilarious. Yeah, so that was a wild bit. The doing the same murder 20 years apart sort of thing. But one
You
time real
felt
and one time
very
fake.
confident before that happened that this was just all about Jack, and it was a Jack thing, and then
I
this
was
story
really-
came out,
yeah, I
and
was
you went,
onto it being Jack
wait, this
heavy.
has nothing to do with Jack.
Yeah, this brought it back to Madame Du Broy. Because this was brought, and it was specifically brought in the context of like, hey, Poirot, like, at least in my mystery, it was like, go find out who Mrs. Du Broy is.
Yeah.
And he comes back with this. Is it done? Is that like the impetus in the novel as well? Did they say she looked familiar, find out who it was, and then they find out?
I mean, more or less, it's Poirot says,
Yeah.
"I reckon I've seen her before in a murder case." Considering the murder happened in Paris, I don't know why he had to go to England in order to find things about it, but he did. It's exactly as happened. He goes back to England to find a newspaper article about it, which he brings back to Hastings.
Wild.
The timing of the events that happened there were a little bit wild because what happens in the book there is it's while he is away that the second murder is discovered. Poirot comes back all happy, and then Hastings said, "And yeah, there's been another murder." And Poirot goes, "What? This doesn't fit with anything I thought."
This
Wait,
doesn't make any
hold on,
sense.
wait. Yes, it does. It does. It's like a 50-year-old tan French man, right? And he was stabbed as well.
Oh, good on you, Poirot. I love it. Yeah, that was fun. I felt legitimately guilty for a while, even though I know I didn't make that decision when it was like, there was a second stabbing with that knife. And I was so sad. I was like, even though Danny made me, I still let another man die. And then it was interesting that it turned out, no, he was dead already. He'd been dead for 2 days.
Yeah, it's
so it
quite
all made-
interesting. Trying to keep time straight in this was quite fascinating.
Yeah, I always worry when I ask you these questions because I know that, like, in the book, I'm sure that every time something happens, there's not and this was happening at exactly 11 p.m. on this date.
No, but
And
there's
so
just enough that's really thrown me. Like, they are investigating the room. They find the stopwatch, and they say, it says it's 7 o'clock now, but it's 5 o'clock. And to my knowledge, they are still just there in the morning. I have no idea
Where
how
the
time
time goes,
passed
yeah.
in that regard. That one definitely threw me a lot.
I think during the record, I think we did a pretty good job at keeping the timeline of events consistent and clear
God,
for the
I hope
people
so.
listening at home. I think we did.
Oh boy,
In
because
terms of,
it's
like,
quite
that happened
something.
the day of the murder. That happened today. This is I think we were fairly clear. But I hope everyone at home, I hope you didn't have any trouble with it.
And so the other big change, and really the biggest change, was how the ending works. Which
So what was the difference in the ending?
it was very different. I had to try to balance it carefully in giving you some agency, but there's so much story going on, like the whole knife. Oh, here's the knife and stuff. No, completely different. So where should we start? Jack gets arrested. That's fine. He does indeed have his little mini trial or whatever it is and is completely listless. And then at that point is when Bella walks in and announces to the fake court, "Nope, I did it. You have already met up with Dulcie and said, 'Run away, I know you did it.'" Then that happens. She confesses. Chapter ends. Then you get a letter from Dulcie explaining everything to
Oh,
Hastings
really?
about throwing the knife away and stuff like that.
Sure.
And how,
I'm
my
glad
God.
we did that differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Then they go back to talk to Jack. Jack has been released. They're like walking with him back up to the house or something. I don't remember the exact setting. And he's just saying how silly he feels, how it's all his fault that he drove Bella to do something like that. He did indeed see her not far from the golf course at that point. So he goes into the house. I don't know. Everyone's just sort of hanging there. His mum, newly recovered from her week-long head trauma, has woken up and yells that she is disowning him. First thing tomorrow, she's writing him out of the will because he let this happen.
Sure.
And then that evening, Poirot, Hastings, and Dulcie all lurk around outside waiting for something to happen.
Great.
Because Poirot made her say that and told her to publicly make that announcement. Because now Marta thinks he is actually going to be written out of the will for good. First thing tomorrow.
Unless she dies.
So she comes in, needle in hand, ready to make it look like a suicide, and instead it turns into a little brawl where Marta ends up dead.
All right, wild.
And it's out of nowhere, and there are stupid little adjustments that would have had no place in this. They quickly looked at Marta's house just to make sure everything was going on there. They saw her silhouette in the window, so Poirot was comfortable. Hastings at this point has no idea that he suspects Marta
All right.
this point. So they just looked in their window for no reason, saw Marta's silhouette, and Poirot went, great, we're making good time. So they go up back to the house to stalk outside, and then they hear the kerfuffle going on. And Poirot goes, oh no, they must have moved her out of her normal bedroom into another one without telling me, so I couldn't keep an eye on her properly. How stupid of the servants to not tell me this.
God.
And then, Dulcie acrobats her way in to wherever they are. And they do this, and it turns out that the silhouette they saw in the house was actually Madame Dubreuil. They look very similar in silhouette form.
Yeah,
so
of course they do.
They didn't know that Marta was already there.
Who cares?
It's a really wildly chaotic chapter.
I have one thing I want to follow up on a little bit, which I think
Please.
In the final episode we mentioned, and I didn't want to harp on it because it would have been a break in the action a bit too much. So in terms of them seeing each other, in terms of Jack seeing Bella and Bella seeing fake Jack, so the theory is, or the feeling is, can I try and break this down a little bit more?
Can I say, first of all, I do not believe that she was meant to have seen fake Jack. I believe they actually just happened to see each other nearby, and therefore each one thought the other one was responsible when they later heard a murder had happened.
Okay, so they just sort of see do we know exactly where and how they saw each other, or they just sort of saw each other at... Because I didn't quite know the exact timing that would have all made sense, but I suppose it just does, if she was around and he was around. Is it as vague as that? They just at some point saw the other and knew that they were in town?
So, yes, I'll tell you exactly what Jack says. He decided to take a shortcut across the golf links to get back to Marta's house, and said, I heard a terrible cry. Not loud, a sort of choke, gasp. It frightened me. I stood rooted to the spot. Then I came round the corner of a bush. It was moonlight. I saw the grave. I saw a figure lying downwards with a dagger sticking out of it. And then I looked up and saw her looking at me as though she'd seen a ghost. And she was horrified. She gave a cry, turned, and ran. And then he, dazed, walked 15 kilometers to the next town over and got a car or a train or something from there.
Oh, wild.
Yeah.
So he saw the body, and then
saw her.
Then they saw each other. And she was
Yes.
like, oh my God, he stabbed the body. And he was like, oh my God, she stabbed the body.
Exactly.
Okay, lovely. That makes sense. That makes a bit more sense in terms of the timing of it. Wonderful.
It is true. The timing, that was baffling. I do not know why she left the house and then hung around the golf course for an hour.
Maybe she was just crying in the golf course. Or maybe she plays golf. Maybe she thought she'd get a quick back 9.
Oh.
So, is there anything else that we want to break down with this one? I think I had a lot of fun with it.
How did you feel it went compared to Styles?
Interesting. I think it was smoother than Styles, weirdly.
Yeah?
I think most of the time I had a good idea of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to know, and most of the episodes were new information and then slotting that in. The new information and slotting it in, whereas Styles was a lot of like, what the hell is going on? And I felt more with Styles that I had no, with the information I had no idea what it meant. Whereas with this, I felt like I was getting new information, which helped me reevaluate. But at all points, I sort of had a feeling of what I knew. I never felt like I was collecting stuff that I was looking at being like, what the hell is this going to be? Whereas Styles had a lot of and now this, I won't spoil it for people who haven't listened to it, but a lot more holding on to things, the whole mystery being but what the hell explains this? I still have no explanation for that. I still have no explanation for this. I still have no explanation for that.
I think there was a lot more physical investigation for you to do in Styles.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, maybe.
This one, you got to do more body looking at. The Styles didn't have much of a body situation.
No, but you're right.
But
they had a little
searching
bit more.
the room, there was a lot to pay attention to in that room that the murder happened in.
Yeah, true. And then in this one, it didn't feel, I felt more in control. So even when I was wrong about stuff, it was like, oh, new information has come to light. That means I've reassessed my theory and new theory. But my old theory was strong, and then my new theory was stronger, rather than flumming, like having no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
There were certain moments where it was like, and now this person, like the confessions really made me be like, wait, hold on, wait, hold on, wait. But for the most part, I think it was more like building the case as opposed to finding all my blocks and having no idea how to put them together, which I think was maybe more like what Styles was.
Yeah. What was interesting, I felt, there aren't that many characters that I want to say, but you sort of, I don't know, of the 4 characters, you pinpointed the guiltiest feeling ones pretty early on. You knew that something was up with them. It was clear when lies were happening.
Yeah. I think it was, yes, I think that the cast of like characters was like, it was just, that's a lie, this is a lie.
Tight.
And I was just trying to work out the details. I have a question, follow up as well.
Yep.
What do you think from this mystery that was written as a murder mystery, but we turned it into a game, but what could we take as lessons or ideas into ones that we write in the future? Is there anything that to learn from this? I quite liked getting that the wording I just had a second ago of like, when there's a mystery and a sub-mystery, trying to like work on what clues could be masquerading as one or the other and how to pull them all out.
So perhaps when you come up with a crime, don't just come up with the murder, come up with 2 crimes and list them out, the things that would happen for those crimes, and then intertwine them.
Yeah, and I will say already there may be elements of that in future ones I've been thinking about or working on and looking at that idea, because it is like a kind of a classic murder mystery thing. But I think this was a nice example of how to do that.
That's cool. The tricky part is to make it not feel like, that's a bit of an odd coincidence, and to actually tie them in some way. There is some reason that 2 of these unlikely things would be happening.
Yeah, and like in this case, like the timing of the
One
murder
of them precipitated
was
the
because
other.
of the timing of the fake murder, like all that sort of stuff, right? So that is a smart thing as well. It shouldn't feel unrelated, right? Like the classic thing is just important person is here, so someone kills them, but also important person had the crown jewels, so there's someone else is there to steal them, right? It's like the presence of the important person in this situation that makes them vulnerable draws multiple types of predators.
It's possible.
Right? So I think that's a kind of a classic thing.
Yeah. I think that something to learn from this one and Styles put together is already just from the 2 of them. There are noted, you're feeling the tropes already. There is a will situation, for instance. There is, I don't know, ambiguity of suicide, sickness, death in one of them. The cast of characters, the relationship dynamics and the children and their relationships dynamics being parts of it. And it's just kind of like it's okay when... A thing that I was struggling with recently when trying to write another one was murder's kind of a big deal. There aren't all that many satisfying motives that you can do in this. Obviously, in the real world, there are a lot of people who just, I don't know, their brain breaks for a minute. But that's not satisfying for a murder mystery. That's not a puzzle. Yeah. And trying to come up with something that feels rational while being naturally such an irrational thing to do, it's really difficult to find something that would push a character that much. And I guess that's why you end up finding the same motives over and over again.
Yeah.
And the idea that, you know what, that's okay. Have these same motives. It's fine.
Yeah, and
just write the word missing will. You're good.
Yeah. I think one thing that I liked about this, and which is a fun element for these sorts of mysteries, is I kind of like hinting early on at kind of like goals. Like I like that feeling when you're investigating, going like, well, what do I have now that are my unknowns? So like early on I had this, I know there was some kind of conflict there, but people don't want to tell me about it. I need to find out about what that fight was about. Or I need to find out, what this secret was. I need to find out who trying to like really like front load these unknowns early on is something I think that we don't really do as much with ours. And I really like that. I like the feeling of, by the way, first thing you learn is there was something strange happening 2 days ago, but that's all the details you get. So then you have this feeling of like, I got to think about 2 days ago. How do I find out what was going on 2 days ago? Like, I think
without necessarily just picking on it in a procedural style way, which is from the start. Like, you can't now just make that, something happened 2 days ago. This is now all I care about until I find an answer to it.
Yes, that's also the balance, I suppose. But I kind of like it. The other thing that these have, I think, I like more physical evidence. And I think with in-flight incident, I tried to work in a little bit more physical evidence
Absolutely.
stuff. And I like that. I want to do more of that. I like the detective part as well. I think there's some joy to that. There's some fun at searching around and finding stuff.
That was definitely the biggest thing that I didn't include. How much of this book is Hastings just going, oh yeah, Gerard knows how to be a real detective.
Yeah, well, I did that too.
Yeah. And Poirot just going, oh,
No,
you're
that's
going to
not the
regret
point.
that.
Yeah.
You're going to regret saying that. This is stupid.
But
And
I
then
do
just
like,
snipping at each other, Poirot and Gerard.
But I love it. I do like a little bit of physical evidence. I think it's
Also,
fun.
Bex does not like Gerard, which is
Nice.
funny.
I like notes as well. We've done we haven't really dealt with this, but I like we had one from when we had Neil in the rock and roll mystery.
Yeah, that was
what was
it.
that called? That was I can't remember what we called it. The rock and roll one. But I like this idea of like, here is a statement. And it exists in its entirety without being able to be interrogated. And I think notes are good for that, as is in that case
Yeah.
it's like a recorded message. It's like this exists. It is not something that you asked about. It's not something you've inferred. You have a like something you can refer to that is a written or recorded statement of some facts.
That's true. That is good.
And then tying that into the case. I think it's a fun element to have.
You think all I need to do is just focus on making cold case solve this murders?
Maybe, but a little bit like that. But it's good. I love doing the investigation. I love questioning people. I love catching them out in lies. But it's nice to have as an element, as an added thing, a couple of like concrete, this was written, this was thought, this was said. And then learning what that means. It's a fun, different sort of way of looking at stuff. And it's like a mix between finding fingerprints and interrogation, finding previous written or recorded thoughts of a person, which I really like. And also, now that I think about it, an element that may be popping up in the next mystery that I write.
Oh, okay.
In fact, yes, now that I think about it, definitely probably will be in there.
Interesting.
So there's elements like which I like. So I like seeing that that's in here and was enjoyable here, and I can sort of tweak the way I want to use that.
We also it's tough with these pre-written ones even more so than the others. Is that we had a moment early on, I don't know how much of it made the final edit, where you knew that Jack was going away to South America. So you went, hey, can I just go to the port and see if I can stop that happening or whatever? To which I just sort of paused and I wondered and I thought, I could probably make this happen and it probably wouldn't matter. I also know that in the book, Jack just comes home because the boat never came. This will resolve itself. And I didn't know what to do, so I just told you this will resolve itself if you want. But I could have, if you had wanted that to happen badly, probably could have made that one work.
Yeah, but it is interesting.
It's a tough balance to try to figure out what is allowed to change and what isn't.
So one of the things, well, this is interesting because one of the things that happened in this mystery was, like we were talking about earlier, this feeling of Hastings has to make an incorrect decision so that more mystery can happen.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether as well, having those sorts of like action-based choice points could be something that's interesting to play with in our mysteries. To just be like, at this point, right? Like I know that they're getting through the investigation. Let's say it becomes evening on the first day of the investigation. At this point, if the detective, Dani or Bill, whoever, thinks to have checked on this element, then the next morning this will happen. If they don't check on that at all, it means there'll be another murder. And here that is.
Good God,
But then,
that's complicated.
Yeah, right. But I like the idea of like so many of these detective things, like there is consequence for action. And I wonder if they'd be like sort of little like looping little versions of the flowchart of a mystery that you could make to be like, let's try and give their action some weight. A little bit like when you're playing like a Dark Souls thing, like, oh, you didn't buy all the person's spells by the end of the first chapter. Well, that means that they die. But if you did, then they live. So like these things that feel like innocuous things that you do, just like, because you do. And then that gets them more information. But then you have to make sure you're not handicapping them if they go one way or the other.
It's a toughie.
Right? But I like this. You could be like, if they go this way, they see the murder happen. If they go this other way, it happens without them observing it. But in recompense, they get this other piece of information. Like playing with this. And then that'd be interesting to have some actual choices with weight that are legitimately and earnestly made during the investigation.
Yeah, maybe.
But it'd be pretty hard. You'd have to really flowchart it out well.
I mean, how do you feel in regards to something like Who Killed Harlow Thrombey, the Choose Your Own Adventure story? Because that is making choices that certainly impact what happens.
True. I mean, yeah, look, I do think it's nice. I think it feels good. I think it feels good to be able to, like, if I had done it right, I could have stopped the second murder, but instead I got the information from the second murder. Like, I think it's fun, and in terms of not so much the puzzle of the mystery, but the narrative of the story is a fun thing to play with.
It's interesting. I'm worried about making people actually responsible for a second fictional murder.
I legitimately, even though I knew I wasn't responsible, I kind of felt responsible for it in this one, but I think it's good. I think it's fun to have a moment of being like, now I'm really invested. Before I was just solving a puzzle for a murder mystery show, but now I have to avenge the death of a fake character. I'm into it now. I think there's some value to that.
That's interesting, because I exclusively do these to keep it feeling like a puzzle and to keep it feeling as unreal and unemotionally invested as possible. Yeah.
True crime cases. Maybe I should go out and murder someone in real life, and if you can't solve it, I'll murder again. All right, well, I think we're probably good to finish this. Oh, yeah,
I just wanted, because it was my highlight, even though it came super late in it, was when you discovered there may have been the possibility of 2 knives.
The 2 knives is great.
Because you just went, how would it get from one to the other and then back to the other body? And I just told you, simple explanation, and you got it and you just went, that's not what happened. And then that indeed brought you to the conclusion, well, there's 2 knives.
Why not
He's
3?
a bad present person. Nailed it, by the way. It's just, he just gives it to every woman.
Yeah. Women love, women love it when you give them knives made out of the wires of planes.
And then naturally you consider, did he give one to Marta as well? And I was very excited.
Oh, you were so happy to be able to throw me off that scent.
What would happen with that? Because I knew even bringing up that search as a possibility was a gamble. As soon as I said you don't find one, you might have gone,
because that's the real knife. But no, I was like, all right, whatever. And then when it came back to it, like, well, of course she didn't have one because it's in the body or it's in the ocean.
The way that takes place in the book is Poirot literally says to Dulcie at some point, off camera, hey, can you just look through your sister's things? If you find the knife, can you bring it to me?
Fun.
And so she does, and that's how he knows.
Instead, you had her be like, you mean this knife?
Yes.
Yeah. Which was I enjoyed that a bit more. All right, well, I loved it. I loved
we never see the sisters interacting in the same scene in the book.
Well, you did it better. Good work, Dani. You made it more enjoyable at the end.
They were slightly better for our purposes.
Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope some of you, if you were interested, partook in the offer that's always present, which is sign up for the Patreon. You get the whole arc on day 1. I hope it was made clear.
This was a long one. This stretched out for 2 months.
If you were giving us the $5 a month, you could have got the full 8 in one day. Or maybe some people get that, they still pace it out every week, so don't worry too much. But I hope you enjoyed the show. If you enjoyed it, a new mystery will be coming out at some point soon. I say that every time, but they are getting sooner. We're getting back into the groove. 2023 is the year of Solve This Murder, so. We're getting right into it. There'll be another mystery soon, if not already coming out in a second. I don't know. But thank you. If you want to help support the show, you can sign up for the Patreon. It's never a requirement, obviously. This is free entertainment. But if you sign up for the Patreon, you get benefits like getting all the episodes at once, but also listening to an extra show that we have where we solve 2-minute mysteries, little kind of puzzles written by Donald J. Sobel, and we try and figure out the crimes committed in those. We've got other stuff there are other bonuses. There's a whole backlog of bonus episodes, including the original murder mysteries that led to this show becoming its own thing. And if you haven't, why not check out our other show? A lot of you are here just for Solve This Murder, but if you enjoy us and you enjoy trying to solve and follow along and figure it out, you can see our other show, Escape This Podcast, where we have escape rooms and guests come on and try and solve all these puzzles and get through the story and the narrative and escape. And they're all self-contained, all done in 1 hour as people get out. But they're fun, and you can play them at home and you can play along, and it's a lovely show if you haven't checked it out.
And especially in the long-form ones, there's often mystery to it as well.
Yes. We also have long-form 10-episode arcs where there's a connected mystery and story that ties all the escape rooms together. So if you haven't given Escape This Podcast a listen, go and check it out. If you also want to support the show without giving money, either because you already are or because you don't want to, which is perfectly fine, the best thing you can do is spread the word. Tell a friend about the show, tell an enemy about the show, jump online, leave a review, or go to a place where people talk about podcasts and say, hey, if you like that, why not check out Solve This Murder? Word of mouth is the best way to get podcasters to listen, to get podcasts into people's ears, right? If you want people to listen to them, tell them. So if you enjoy the show, tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a stranger on the internet. It would be very helpful. And we'll see you soon for another mystery. This one written by me, for me.
Oh. Oh, I see.
With all
how it is.
proceeds going to me. All right, bye everybody.
Thank you so much.
Solve This Murder is created by Bill Sunderland and Dani Siller as part of the Consume This Media network. To find out more about all of our shows, you can head to consumethismedia.com. A special thank you to Jared, Devon and Whit from the podcast Advanced Sagebrush and Shootouts for creating our theme music. And thanks to all of you for listening.